I apologize for recording this a bit late. A bit late means many hours late. Should have done it last night, but Baruch Hashem, many papers to grade took up much of my evening, and became very late. The topic I gave last time had to do with speak softly and carry a big stick, and I asked you to actually offer your own interpretations based on, or assessments based on the psukim that I gave you and the ideas I gave you, and some of you did a very good job. Some of you are still waiting for it. The assignment was not technically due till today. So since I'm still waiting, therefore I'm not going to go back to today. I'm going to come back to tomorrow and talk about the ideas that we put in there, and what the connections are to the other ideas. In other words, between the Torah, to speak softly and carry a big stick, and the Torah ideas. So leave that for tomorrow. But time being today, we're going to talk about other aspects of President Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt, which he is remembered, which are very significant to us until this very day. Now, the first thing you should know is a word which today means something very different than it meant back then, which is the word progressive. Word progressive comes from the word progress. Progressive. Today, you will not find a member of the Republican Party, the party of which Teddy Roosevelt is a part, who professes or even agrees to be called a progressive, because progressive today has a specific meaning which did not have back then. Back then, progressive means somebody who was concerned with bettering society, making society better in ways which would uplift people and uplift the nation in ways which would make us a better place. Today, progressive simply means a liberal. And today, the word liberal also doesn't mean what it meant back then. Word liberal today liberal, Liberal, means basically the same thing as somebody who wants to spend lots of money in order to get things done by the government, which the opposite of today's liberals, which are today's conservatives, not to be confused with conservative Judaism, nothing to do with it, conservatives, Conservative, costs much too much money, involves much too much government interference, and is ultimately detrimental for the freedom of the American spirit. So the liberals hold that today, liberal means that you are somebody who wants to basically pursue the agenda of the Democratic Party. The Republicans are conservatives. They want to pursue their agenda. The Democrats, on a very basic level, want an expanded government role, was paying more money for various programs which they would like to see implemented. So too, the Republicans, on a very basic level, are the people who want to spend less money and have government less involved in let the society make its own way forward. Okay, so that is extremely oversimplified definition of liberal and conservative. And progressive is a synonym for liberal, but it means somebody who's even more liberal than liberal. In other words, Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, they were progressives, because they want to spend even more money and do even more with the government than the less progressive Democrats who were to Joe Biden and so on and so forth. So the idea of spending less money, again, less government is associated with conservative. The idea of spending more money, more government is associated with liberal. But back at the time of Theodore Roosevelt, most people wanted to be called liberals, because back then liberal just meant you wanted to see society progress, and society was perceived as having lots of problems. Unlike today, where one can pretend that society has solved lots and lots of its problems. Back then, society was seen to have had lots and lots of problems. So therefore, to be a liberal did not necessarily mean the same thing it means today. It meant somebody wanted to see society progress. Conservatives are people that thought society was just fine and dandy as was. So therefore, conservatives tended to be people who were okay with the status quo. Status quo is a good word to know. Extremely good word to know. Status quo. Is actually two words. STATUSQUO. Status quo means the status of things as is now. They don't want things to change. That's what conservatives didn't want things to change. And generally back then, the conservatives were the Democratic Party. Why is that? Because the Democratic Party, if you must remember, was the party which was in opposition to Lincoln in the elections. Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. So, and he freed the slaves and emancipated the South and waged civil war and all those sorts of things. And the people, therefore, a party which opposed Lincoln's ideals at the time was the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party was much more conservative. They didn't want to change things. They wanted to change things much slower than the Republicans. The Republicans were the progressive party. They're the ones who, under Lincoln, freed the slaves, emancipated the people of color of America. So therefore, they were changing things. They were more liberal and progressive at the time. Again, over the years, things flipped. The parties flipped, what they represent. Mostly after the Second World War, for reasons which, I don't know if we're ever going to discuss this here, but maybe, who knows, some of the future. So Roosevelt was a liberal and a progressive and a Republican. All those things were not a contradiction back then. So therefore, he had several ideals, some which he accomplished, some not, for the purpose of the nations moving forward. And one of those, which he's most recognized today, is national parks. Believe it or not, I spell parks wrong. I know national parks. I know many of you have been ever to a national park. I assume quite a few of you. They range from huge national parks in Alaska and the west of the United States to smaller ones in the east of the United States. But they even range to national historic sites such as Edison's Laboratory, where you might have been, which is also under the national park system, even though it's really technically not a park, but it is something which is preserved. And that's the key point in a national park. A national park is something which is preserved either because nature is an amazing thing. We believe that in Judaism very strongly. When we say, Rabbu Masecho Hashem, Rabbu Masecho Hashem, how great your works of Kodesh Baruch Hu, and to go out and be amazed by the Niflos Habore. Niflos Habore means, actually, it will spell. Niflos Habore, the astonishing wonders of Kodesh Baruch Hu's world, is one of the ways we come to Emunah in Hashem. Because the world is so amazingly complex and so amazingly breathtakingly beautiful and so awe-inspiring that it indicates that there is a designer who designed the world. And that's the Chazal tells us that's how Avraham Avinu came to Emunah. Avraham Avinu went out and saw how amazing this world is, and he said it's such an amazing, intricate, and profoundly I'm not sure I was going to finish that sentence. Let's try a different sentence. Such an amazingly intricate and complex and beautiful and astonishing creation. You need to have a creator, and that creator was HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's how Avraham Avinu, according to Chazal, came to Emunah, by seeing the complexity of the world, and that is to this day remains one of the primary ways of accomplishing Emunah in Hashem is by seeing the complexity and extraordinary beauty which exists in the world. So Teddy Roosevelt went once on a camping trip in 1903 with John Muir it's not spelled the way you think it is, was a conservationist. Mm-hmm. 1903, John Muir, conservationist. Conservationist is regular conservative, but in a very different way. Conservationist wants to conserve nature the way it is, and make sure that the brilliant, amazing, and awe-inspiring vistas. Good word to know. Vistas. Vistas, meaning views and places where you could perceive things which the world which America has in abundance, be preserved for future generations as parks. Now, these parks are not just places where you go to have fun, but on the contrary, these are parks where things are preserved as if in a museum. Nature is preserved in a museum. It's not allowed to be changed by human hands, which is very often what humans like to do. If you didn't have a national park system, so many of these sites which we associate with the pristine is, boy, a lot of good words today. Pristine means untouched and beautiful. Something which has never been tampered with the pristine, beautiful. So given human tendencies, we will never leave something pristine alone, but we make sure to make money off it in some way. So national parks are meant to make sure that these parks remain intact in their natural way. By the way, just as an aside, if you've ever been to the American Museum of Natural History, which is in New York on the Upper West Side, when I was a kid and we were in school, it was like the annual big trip was to the American Museum of Natural History. I'm not sure what we did with the issue of little boys who are Kohanim, because technically speaking, Kohanim are not supposed to go into a hospital where there are dead bodies of human beings. And in the American Museum of Natural History, there are some. But in any event, it's a place where we went all the time, and that was founded, and there's a statue outside the American Museum of Natural History by Theodore Roosevelt. And therefore, this is one of his great accomplishments, to have a museum of amazing things in nature, which at the time was the first museum, I think, of its kind, certainly in the United States of America. Actually arose from a collection of specimens of various different animals and stuff that Roosevelt collected when he was a youngster. So we will go forward from there. So John Muir and Theodore Roosevelt went on a camping trip in 1903 to what I believe is now the Yosemite National Park in California. And Roosevelt also that year went to visit Grand Canyon for the first time in his life. And he was so impressed by what he saw, how the beauty of it and the extraordinary I don't know if I'm going to finish the sentence. There are many words I could use to finish the sentence, but let's say use the word, I forgot to be in the sentence. Anyway, it was fantastic. So he went and he saw all this, and he decided we need to have have this preserved. The national parks. I will show you a short clip on the topic of Theodore Roosevelt and John Muir's trip. Really is just a minute or so. And that is the first. So today's accomplishment is national parks. Okay, this is something which is important for us to appreciate. And the flow sabore, the astonishing creation which HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us, and how amazing Magodlu Masech Hashem Kula V'Chachma. So you saw how phenomenal the deeds are of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which are made with extraordinary Chachma. Stop here, and I'll show you the short video.
Action! Still just chatting. More looking than chatting. This is the first shoot of this national parks film. We're at Yosemite National Park in the Sequoia Grove, and we're recreating the moment that Teddy Roosevelt and John Muir determined what the National Park Service should be. I want them away from the big trees. It's called the 3 most important days in the life of conservation in America, because they set out what should happen with the national parks and how there should be a system that would preserve these wonderful areas forever. And it happened. Teddy Roosevelt made it happen.